There are moments in life when God blesses you in ways that cannot be explained. Moments when you look at what's in your hands and realize this isn't normal, this isn't random, this is divine, this is God's reward after years of faithfulness, pain, and silent endurance. But the greatest test often does not come before the blessing, it comes after. Because when God begins to bless you financially, spiritually, emotionally, He's not only watching how you receive it, He's watching how you handle it. So when the money comes, when the doors open, when the overflow hits your account and opportunities start chasing you, remember this: not everything that God gives is meant to be announced. The first mistake many people make after breakthrough is broadcasting it. They call people, they post about it. They want to prove that the same ones who doubted them were wrong. But what if I told you sometimes God blesses you in silence because He wants to protect you from the noise that follows? When God blesses you, He is not simply rewarding your hard work or your prayers. He is revealing what's inside of you. Every blessing carries a mirror. It reflects your motives, your maturity, and your mindset. Many people pray for more money, more influence, more opportunities, but few realize that each of those requests comes with a test. You don't truly know who you are until abundance enters the room. Lack exposes desperation, but prosperity exposes intention. And that's why the real test begins after the miracle shows up. When you had nothing, it was easy to depend on God. It was natural to wake up praying, to seek His will, to ask for direction because you needed Him for every step. But when the account begins to overflow, when doors begin to open, when people start celebrating your success, that's when the battle for humility begins. Because prosperity whispers, you did this. It tempts you to take credit for what only grace could produce. And that is why God doesn't only test your faith in famine, He tests your character in fullness. Every increase reveals something. For some, wealth exposes gratitude. For others, it exposes pride. Before blessing, it's easy to promise God faithfulness. If you bless me, I'll honor you. I'll give. I'll stay humble. But when the blessing finally arrives, suddenly the same hands that used to be lifted in prayer become too busy counting profit. The heart that used to cry and surrender now beats with self-sufficiency. That's why God watches not only how you receive increase, but how you handle it. See, God never gives randomly. Every promotion, every open door, every financial breakthrough carries purpose. It's not just about what's in your hand, it's about what's in your heart. If the blessing changes your posture, you weren't ready for it. If abundance makes you forget where you came from, it's not progress, it's pride in disguise. The difference between those who stay blessed and those who lose their blessing is character. God can only trust wealth to those whose hearts remain soft when their hands are full. That's why sometimes God delays the miracle, not because He doesn't love you, but because He's preparing your spirit. He's refining you so that when the money comes, it won't master you. Because make no mistake, wealth is powerful. It can transform or it can corrupt. It can empower your calling or it can inflate your ego. Money is neutral. It takes the shape of its holder. When it lands in a surrendered heart, it multiplies impact. When it lands in a prideful one, it magnifies insecurity. Every blessing is a teacher. It teaches you what matters most. The question isn't, can I handle poverty? It's, can I handle prosperity without forgetting the provider? Many people crumble not under pressure, but under privilege. When life gets easier, they stop seeking the one who made it possible. They no longer pray like before. They no longer worship with the same desperation. But the truth is, if the blessing makes you drift, then it wasn't a reward. It became a revelation of misplaced priorities. God will sometimes test you by giving you what you asked for, not to punish you, but to see if your faith can handle favor. Can you stay humble when people praise you? Can you remain generous when you have plenty? Can you still depend on God when you no longer need Him for the next meal? These are the questions prosperity asks. Because while lack reveals your patience, blessing reveals your purity. That's why Scripture warns, to whom much is given, much is required. The more God entrusts to you, the more carefully He watches how you manage it. It's not about the size of your bank account. It's about the size of your obedience. Will you still listen? Will you still give? Will you still worship when the house is paid for and the prayers have been answered? Many fall into the trap of believing that blessings prove righteousness. But in truth, blessings test righteousness. God doesn't reward pride. He rewards faithfulness. And faithfulness isn't proven in the wilderness. It's proven in the palace. It's easy to be spiritual when you're struggling. But when comfort comes, can you still carry the same conviction? When increase comes, that's when integrity is weighed. Because now you have options, you have choices, you have influence. The same tongue that once cried for help now has power to command. And if that tongue isn't surrendered, it will start boasting instead of blessing. That's why God's greatest gift isn't just provision, it's discernment. The ability to recognize that what's in your hand is not your possession, but your entrustment. You are a steward, not an owner. And the moment you start treating the blessing as your identity, it begins to fade. So remember this, every blessing is both gift and examination. It asks, can I trust you with more? It's not about how loud you shout when it comes, but how quietly you carry it once it's yours. When the increase arrives, your response reveals your heart. Some celebrate self, others worship God. That's the difference between those who build legacies and those who lose blessings. God blesses not to impress the world, but to express his faithfulness. When he gives, he's not trying to prove your worth. He's inviting you to prove your wisdom. The reward of blessing is responsibility, and how you handle increase determines if heaven can release more. Because the truth is simple. Blessing doesn't just reveal what you have, it reveals who you are. Silence is not weakness. It is wisdom wrapped in restraint. There are seasons in life when God blesses you, not to make noise, but to make impact. And that impact often begins in secret. When increase comes, when doors open, when favor follows you, your first instinct may be to share it, to post it, to prove that your faith finally worked. But what if God never asked you to announce it? What if the blessing was meant to be protected, not publicized? Some miracles lose their strength because they are spoken before they are stable. When God begins to bless you, he doesn't just give, he tests. He watches how you handle the weight of new glory. There is a sacred silence that must surround fresh blessing, because everything that grows begins in the dark. Seeds don't sprout under a spotlight. They sprout underground, unseen, uncelebrated, unannounced. In the same way, God often works beneath the surface. He brings increase quietly. He opens doors silently. He deposits favor privately, because he knows not everyone around you can handle what he's about to do. Many people lose what God gives, not because they were unworthy, but because they were unwise. They revealed it too soon. They shared something sacred with people who didn't carry the maturity to see it rightly. There are moments when your voice can become your vulnerability. Speaking about what's unfolding invites ears that are not assigned to your destiny. And not all ears are pure. Some will celebrate you in public, but criticize you in private. Some will hear your testimony and respond not with praise, but with envy. That's why God teaches us the discipline of discretion. Silence is a shield. It protects what's still developing. The same way a mother protects the child in her womb, you must protect the blessing in its early form. If you expose it before it's ready, it can die under pressure. Not everyone will understand your miracle. Not everyone can discern your moment. Some will hear what God did for you and interpret it through jealousy, suspicion, or even spiritual opposition. And that's why God says, be still. Because silence is not only safety, it's strategy. There are people who were once your friends in famine, but can't handle your abundance. As long as you were struggling, you were relatable. As long as you needed help, you were accepted. But when God starts multiplying you, when he begins lifting you higher, that same circle can shift. The wrong people can't handle the right season. Their insecurity awakens when your promise begins to show. And if you tell everyone what's happening before God finishes it, you risk attracting voices that were never meant to influence your next step. The enemy works best through information. What he knows, he attacks. That's why some of your greatest seasons are the ones that look quiet to others. It's not that nothing's happening. It's that heaven is working silently. God doesn't need to prove anything to people. He's not performing for applause. He's producing purpose. And if you're going to walk with him, you must learn to be comfortable in hiddenness, because silence doesn't mean stagnation. It means preparation. When you move too loudly, you alert opposition. When you move wisely, you disarm it. Some doors are meant to be walked through quietly. Some blessings are meant to be carried privately, because the noise of announcement often invites the noise of distraction. The moment you start speaking, opinions start forming. Suddenly, everyone has advice, some spiritual, some selfish, some manipulative. And if you're not rooted, you'll start adjusting divine direction to fit human validation. That's why God sometimes isolates the blessed. He separates before he elevates. He hides before he highlights. Because what's birthed in private can't be stolen by public perception. The miracle grows stronger when it's guarded. The increase matures when it's managed quietly. The most dangerous thing you can do with a fresh blessing is to give it exposure before it's equipped to stand. Remember Joseph. He dreamed something divine, but he declared it prematurely, and that early disclosure drew opposition that delayed his destiny. God still fulfilled it, but Joseph learned a lesson every dreamer must understand. Not everyone who hears your vision will honor it. Some will try to crush what they can't control. Some will turn your revelation into rivalry. And that's why silence isn't cowardice, it's covering. When God gives you something valuable, it deserves privacy. Your increase is holy. Your breakthrough is sacred. It's not content for the crowd. It's a covenant between you and God. Protect it, guard it. Let it grow roots before it grows branches. Because what's strong in secret becomes unshakable in public. Silence allows the blessing to mature in strength. It gives you time to learn stewardship. It keeps you humble, focused, and faithful. Because when you're quiet, you can hear clearly. You can sense what God wants next. You can build depth before you display fruit. When the world says, show it off, heaven says, store it up. What God gives you in secret is meant to be nurtured, not flaunted. The fruit will speak for itself in time. The evidence will announce what your mouth never needed to. And when God is ready, he will reveal it in such a way that no man can deny it was him. So if you're in a season of silent success, don't be frustrated. That silence is not punishment. It's protection. It's God saying, what I'm building in you is too precious to be exposed before it's time. Let your stillness be strength. Let your secrecy be strategy. Because the greatest blessings are often born in quiet places, far from noise, but they shake nations when revealed. Joseph was chosen long before anyone recognized him. His destiny was written in heaven, yet his journey was shaped by one simple mistake. He spoke too soon. When God gave him a dream, it wasn't meant to be displayed. It was meant to be developed. But in his youthful excitement, he announced what God intended to keep hidden. He ran to his brothers, eager to share the vision that had stirred his soul. He told them that one day they would bow before him, that he would rise to leadership and influence. What Joseph didn't understand was that revelation without timing invites resistance. When you speak prematurely, you awaken opposition that isn't ready to see you in your future. There's a spiritual principle buried in Joseph's story. Not everyone who hears your dream will celebrate it. Some will interpret your promise as pride. Others will view your prophecy as a threat. Joseph's brothers weren't angry because the dream was evil. They were angry because it challenged their comfort. It confronted their own limitations. It made them see in Joseph what they didn't see in themselves. And that's what happens when you share divine insight with carnal minds. They can't process what heaven placed inside you. God often reveals things to you in secret for a reason. He gives you a glimpse of destiny, a whisper of greatness, a sense of purpose. But he also gives you silence, because revelation is not the same as release. Just because God showed you what will happen doesn't mean it's time to speak it. There's a season for seeing and a season for saying. Between the promise and the platform lies the process. Joseph saw the palace, but didn't yet have the wisdom to carry it. The dream was true, but his discernment was still immature. And that's where many people miss it. They mistake early revelation for immediate manifestation. When God shows you your future, he's inviting you to prepare, not to prove. Preparation happens in privacy. But when you announce prematurely, you invite battles you're not yet equipped to fight. Joseph didn't just share a dream. He revealed a threat. He gave his brothers insight into a future that challenged their position, and jealousy was born the moment he spoke. Notice they didn't hate him for who he was. They hated him for what he saw. The enemy doesn't attack your present. He attacks your potential. This is why discernment is essential. Not every truth is meant for public ears. There are moments when silence is not cowardice, it's covering. God hides vision because exposure too early brings unnecessary warfare. What's meant to grow roots must remain underground for a season. If Joseph had waited, he might have avoided the pit. But his words invited opposition before his character could withstand it. Some of the battles you face are not from the devil. They're from disclosure. You shared something sacred with people who didn't carry the spiritual maturity to handle it. You opened your heart to ears that couldn't comprehend your calling. And now you're fighting storms that came not from your failure, but from your frankness. That's why Scripture warns us to be quick to listen and slow to speak. Because timing is everything in the kingdom. God is strategic. He unfolds destiny in stages. What he reveals to you is a seed, not a showcase. And seeds die when they're exposed too soon. They need darkness to develop strength. They need pressure to build roots. That's why the most powerful visions are nurtured in silence. When you guard what God shows you, you give it room to grow without interference. Joseph eventually rose to power, but only after years of hidden preparation. The pit, the prison, the pain, all of it was necessary to mature the boy and the man. His gift was real, but it needed shaping. And by the time he stood before Pharaoh, he had learned something that every dreamer must learn: what God shows you is holy. It's not for display, it's for direction. When you speak prematurely, you put what's sacred in the hands of skeptics. They will analyze it, mock it, twist it. They'll plant seeds of doubt in your spirit. And if you're not rooted, you'll begin questioning what God told you. That's how many dreams die, not by failure, but by discouragement. The wrong conversation can silence a divine calling. So learn from Joseph. Don't rush to reveal what God is still refining. Some dreams are meant to stay between you and heaven until the time of fulfillment. Let the fruit speak for itself when it's ripe. Because if you speak too early, you risk losing the strength that only silence can build. There will come a time when God says, now. That's when the dream is ready to be seen. That's when the revelation has matured into reality. But until then, protect what God planted. Pray over it. Work quietly. Build faithfully. Because the dream doesn't need attention. It needs alignment. And when the moment arrives, the same people who doubted you will witness the manifestation without you ever saying a word. Joseph's story teaches us that destiny delayed by discretion is still destiny secured. The dream never died. It just waited for the dreamer to grow. So if you're holding something God showed you, resist the urge to share it with everyone. Let time prove what your tongue doesn't need to. Because what's divine will always defend itself in silence, in process, and eventually in power. Wealth without wisdom is like fire in the hands of a child, powerful but dangerous. Money in itself is not evil. It's a magnifier. It takes whatever is within you and brings it to light. If you are disciplined, it will multiply your discipline. If you are careless, it will magnify your recklessness. That's why divine provision requires divine wisdom. God never blesses without purpose, and he never provides without expectation. The increase that comes from heaven is not random. It's entrusted. And what is entrusted must be stewarded, not shown off. When the blessing finally arrives, the financial breakthrough, the unexpected promotion, the opportunities that shift your season, it's easy to assume that the journey is complete. You prayed for it, waited for it, fought for it, and now it's here. But in reality, this is only the beginning. God doesn't give wealth to complete you. He gives it to test you, because abundance is not a reward. It's a responsibility. What you do after you receive determines whether you are ready for the next level. When you receive increase without insight, you risk losing what you prayed for. Many people collapse under the very thing they asked God to bless them with, not because they were ungrateful, but because they were unprepared. Wealth requires structure. It demands maturity. You cannot manage spiritual provision with a carnal mindset. God gives, but he also observes. He watches how you handle what he placed in your hand. Do you build with it, or do you boast about it? Do you seek wisdom before you spend, or do you chase validation with every purchase? The difference between those who grow in blessing and those who lose it lies in stewardship. Wisdom says, Everything that comes to me must first go through God. It asks questions before it acts. It sees increase not as a trophy, but as a tool. Without that wisdom, prosperity becomes a prison. Because if you don't understand the purpose of your provision, it will eventually control you. Money can buy comfort, but it cannot buy contentment. It can expand your options, but it can't expand your soul. Without spiritual grounding, wealth becomes weight, heavy, distracting, and demanding. That's why Proverbs tells us that a wise man stores up knowledge. He learns before he leaps. He studies before he spends. When God blesses you, He's not looking for celebration first. He's looking for management. What you do with what He gives reveals if He can trust you with more. If you blow what was meant to build, you disqualify yourself from expansion. Heaven promotes stewards, not spenders. Sometimes God delays wealth until wisdom is developed because it's mercy, not punishment, to wait. If He gave you everything now, it might destroy what He's still developing inside you. A full cup without a steady hand leads to spillage. And that's what happens when increase arrives before understanding. You start acting out of emotion rather than revelation. You make decisions based on the thrill of arrival instead of the counsel of the Spirit. But wisdom anchors you. It reminds you that everything you own is borrowed. Every opportunity is on loan from God. You are not the source. You are the steward. When you receive wealth with wisdom, your posture changes. You stop asking, "What can I do with this?" and start asking, "What does God want me to do with this?" You see your bank account not as a measure of status, but as a mirror of stewardship. You understand that true prosperity is not in what you keep, but in what you cultivate. Wisdom teaches timing. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Not every open door is a divine invitation. Not every deal is a destiny move. Without wisdom, abundance makes you impulsive, but with wisdom, it makes you intentional. You begin to recognize that not all increase is about personal comfort. Some is about kingdom assignment. The more you have, the more accountable you become. God doesn't release resources for ego. He releases them for impact. That's why before you broadcast your blessing, you must learn to build in silence. Study the systems of stewardship. Ask God to show you how to multiply without losing your mission, because if your wealth outgrows your wisdom, it will crush your purpose. There's a reason why many people rise fast and fall faster. They never learned how to sustain success. They treated provision as proof instead of preparation. Wisdom whispers when excitement shouts. It says, pause, pray, plan. It teaches you to slow down long enough to recognize that every dollar carries direction. Every opportunity carries obligation, and every blessing carries boundaries. If you don't know how to manage it, you'll lose the very thing that was meant to lift you. So when God blesses you, don't rush to show it. Sit with it. Seek counsel, sow wisely, build quietly. Let your foundation grow deeper than your fortune, because wealth without wisdom is noise, but wealth with wisdom is legacy. God's goal is not to make you rich. It's to make you ready to handle what He's sending, ready to reflect His heart through your hands, ready to use every resource as a tool for transformation. In the end, wisdom is the difference between fleeting riches and lasting reward. When money meets maturity, miracles multiply. But when wealth meets immaturity, blessings break. That's why before God increases what's in your hand, He develops what's in your head. Because divine wealth is not just about accumulation, it's about application. And only the wise know how to turn blessing into impact. Jealousy is one of the most silent yet dangerous forces that rise when favor begins to show on your life. People can walk beside you while you struggle, encourage you while you're waiting, and even pray with you in your wilderness. But the moment fruit appears on your tree, some of those same voices grow quiet, not because they hate you, but because your evidence confronts their unbelief. People are often comfortable with your process, but uncomfortable with your progress. That's why when God begins to bless you, when doors finally open, when money begins to flow, when results begin to show, it's not the enemy you need to worry about. Sometimes it's the envy that wakes up around you. Jealousy is attracted to evidence. As long as your dreams are unseen, you're safe. As long as your vision is just talk, no one minds. But the moment something starts working, the moment they see proof that God's hand is truly upon you, something shifts. It's not that everyone is evil, but elevation exposes hearts. The same people who clapped for your calling may not celebrate your confirmation. That's why you must learn to walk quietly when success begins to manifest. Every victory is not meant to be shouted from the rooftop. Sometimes the safest place for your testimony is the secret place. You have to understand, not everyone is capable of celebrating you without comparing themselves. Your progress can trigger pain in someone who hasn't yet dealt with their disappointment. Your success can remind them of their delay. It doesn't make you wrong for being blessed, but it does make you wise to be careful, because when people can't control your favor, they'll often try to question it. They'll start to wonder if you deserve it, if you earned it, if maybe you changed. But the truth is, you didn't change. Your season did. God decided it was time for your harvest. And the same God who lifted you can lift them. But they must handle their hearts first. When jealousy rises, discernment becomes your protection. You must learn to recognize when conversations shift, when support becomes silent, when eyes start watching but not celebrating. It's not about becoming suspicious. It's about being spiritually alert. Some blessings require privacy until maturity. Not because you're ashamed, but because exposure too early can attract opposition you're not prepared for. Even Jesus, after performing miracles, often said, "Tell no one." Why? Because he understood that publicity without purpose draws unnecessary pressure. There's a wisdom in silence. When God begins to prosper you, the best response isn't noise. It's gratitude. Let your fruit speak louder than your words. Let your results testify for you. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to stay faithful. Those who truly love you will see the blessing and glorify God with you. Those who don't were never your foundation to begin with. One of the greatest lessons in success is realizing that not every connection can come with you to the next level. Some people were divine for your wilderness, but dangerous for your promise. You also have to protect your peace from the subtle poison of comparison. Jealousy doesn't just come from others. Sometimes it creeps into your own heart. Watching others get blessed while you wait can create bitterness if you're not grounded in purpose. But remember, your evidence will come in its own time. Everyone has a divine schedule. What looks like delay is often God developing your depth. And when your evidence finally appears, guard it. Don't flaunt it to prove a point. You don't need to announce what God already approved. When proof shows up, humility must grow deeper. The higher you go, the quieter you should become, not out of fear, but out of focus. You can't afford to lose yourself in applause, because the same crowd that cheers you can change its tone tomorrow. Jesus entered Jerusalem with people shouting, "Hosanna." But days later they cried, "Crucify him." Popularity is never permanent. That's why wise people don't chase validation. They chase assignment. You're not blessed to be noticed. You're blessed to be useful. So when evidence starts to appear in your life, the promotion, the business breakthrough, the financial overflow, thank God in silence first. Pray before you post. Ask him, is this for public testimony or private development? Because sometimes what looks like a victory to you is still a seed in God's eyes. He's still watering it. He's still shaping it. And if you expose it too early, you risk it being misunderstood or misused. Understand this: true success doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is. Your job is to protect your peace and keep your eyes on purpose. Let others talk, you stay focused. Let your consistency prove your calling. Don't waste energy explaining your blessing to people who never believed in your struggle. You don't owe anyone an explanation for God's goodness in your life. In the end, jealousy will always find something to question, but peace comes when you no longer need to defend what God has done. The best response to envy is excellence. Keep walking, keep building, keep giving God glory, because evidence doesn't just attract jealousy, it also attracts destiny. And those who are meant to walk with you will celebrate your fruit without questioning your favor. So when the proof appears, stay silent, stay steady, and stay humble. Because jealousy may watch, but grace will guard you. When God blesses you, he doesn't do it to make you famous. He does it to make you effective. Every time God releases increase, whether it's financial, spiritual, or positional, it carries a purpose bigger than your comfort. We often think favor comes to validate us, to prove to the world that we've made it. But heaven doesn't operate on ego. God is not trying to make you popular. He's trying to make you productive. When the money comes, when the doors open, when the favor flows, it's not a signal to boast. It's an assignment to build. Divine blessings are tools, not trophies. They're not meant to sit on a shelf for display, but to be used in the field for purpose. Every provision from God has a mission attached to it. When He increases you, He's saying, I trust you with more because I can trust you to use it for me. The tragedy is that many people treat provision like promotion for their name rather than preparation for His work. They receive the miracle, but they miss the message because every blessing is an invitation to stewardship, not a license for self-exaltation. The truth is, God's blessings are never random. When He elevates you, it's because He wants to reach someone through you. Maybe the money He gave isn't just to buy better things, but to build better lives. Maybe the platform He opened isn't for you to shine, but to serve. The higher He lifts you, the more responsible you become for what you represent. Heaven never blesses without intention. The moment you make it about you, you start shrinking what God designed to expand. Look at Scripture. Every person God elevated, He did so for the sake of others. Joseph was promoted to feed nations. Esther was crowned to save her people. David was enthroned to lead with righteousness. None of them received favor to flaunt it. They received it to fulfill a divine assignment. That's the danger of treating increase as identity. If you start believing that money makes you important, you'll begin to misuse what was meant for ministry. Because the moment you confuse purpose with popularity, you start living for applause rather than alignment. Wealth and influence are some of the greatest tests of humility. When God begins to trust you with more, it's easy to start thinking you made it happen. You forget the prayers that birthed the breakthrough. You forget the quiet seasons that trained your character. But if you don't keep your heart centered, the very thing that was meant to help you fulfill destiny can pull you away from it. Purpose keeps prosperity pure. When you know why you're blessed, you won't abuse what you're blessed with. This is why discernment is crucial. Before you celebrate the blessing, you must ask, Lord, what is this for? Maybe that financial increase wasn't just to enlarge your life, but to empower your calling. Maybe the extra isn't for luxury, but for legacy. If you see everything God gives as a seed, you'll never run out of harvest. But if you see it only as a reward, you'll eventually run empty. Blessings are not the end goal. They are fuel for the journey. When God blesses you, He's watching not how loud you celebrate, but how faithfully you allocate. What do you do with what He gave? Do you build? Or do you boast? Do you invest in His vision? Or do you inflate your own? Because heaven multiplies resources where it sees responsibility. The moment your blessing becomes self-centered, you step outside the flow of favor. God can't keep filling hands that are closed. But when your heart remains open to purpose, He will continue to trust you with more. There's a reason the Bible says, seek first the kingdom. Because when you chase assignment, abundance follows. But when you chase attention, you lose both. You were not created to impress people. You were chosen to impact generations. Every dollar, every open door, every miracle is God saying, I'm partnering with you for something eternal. If you make it about you, it dies with you. But if you make it about Him, it multiplies beyond you. So when the money comes, don't let pride rise. Don't post for validation. Don't compete with others. Sit before God and ask, what are you calling me to do with this? Maybe your assignment is to bless a struggling family, to build a foundation, to invest in a ministry, to fund a vision that outlives you. The point is, every blessing is meant to flow through you, not just to you. Purpose turns prosperity into power. When your heart stays aligned, your wealth becomes worship. You begin to see giving not as loss, but as leadership. You realize you're not an owner. You're an instrument. And the moment you surrender your resource back to the source, heaven breathes on it. What you release multiplies. What you hoard decays. In the end, true increase is not about your name being known. It's about His kingdom being advanced. God doesn't bless you for attention. He blesses you for assignment. So when favor comes, remember, it's not for validation. It's for vocation. It's not for luxury. It's for legacy. You're not the point. You're the vessel. And the greatest honor you can give God is to use what He gave you to fulfill what He called you to do. Private obedience is one of the most powerful and overlooked keys to divine promotion. In a world obsessed with visibility, God still honors what is done in secret. Heaven watches the moments no one else sees, the quiet sacrifices, the whispered prayers, the choices made when there's no applause, because what you do in private reveals who you really are. Public success is built on private surrender, and when God begins to elevate someone, it's never because of what they performed for people, but because of what they obeyed in the unseen. There's a sacred rhythm to promotion in the kingdom. God hides you before he highlights you. He watches how you handle obscurity before he trusts you with opportunity. Many want the stage, but few want the silence. Yet it's in the silence that God shapes the soul. It's in the hidden place that he teaches you discipline, humility, and dependence. When no one is clapping, will you still be faithful? When no one sees your giving, will you still be generous? When no one knows your name, will you still serve with excellence? Because that's what heaven measures. Private obedience doesn't look glamorous. It often means saying yes when your flesh wants no. It's forgiving when no one else knows the offense. It's sowing seeds no one will ever trace back to you. It's choosing integrity when compromise would be easier. These small, unseen acts build the foundation for lasting blessing. God doesn't just reward obedience, he rewards consistency. And the consistency he honors is often quiet. You don't have to broadcast your battles or your breakthroughs. Just keep walking faithfully. Jesus gave us the perfect example. Before he ever preached to crowds, he spent years as a carpenter. Before his miracles were witnessed by thousands, his obedience was tested in isolation, in prayer, in fasting, in the wilderness. Even when the enemy tempted him, his victory was private, yet it positioned him for public impact. That's the pattern. Private obedience brings public reward. You cannot skip the hidden season and expect lasting fruit. The deeper the root, the stronger the tree. The danger in today's world is that people want recognition without refinement. They want the spotlight without the secret place. But light without depth burns out quickly. If you rise before you're ready, success will expose what discipline never developed. That's why God often delays visibility, not to deny you, but to prepare you. Every quiet act of obedience builds spiritual weight. Every unseen yes strengthens your foundation. When you finally step into the public place, you carry authority, not just appearance. Heaven values motives more than moments. You may fool people with performance, but you can't fool God with pretense. He sees why you give, why you serve, why you post, why you pray. And when your motive is pure, when you do it for him and not for them, he takes note. The Bible says, your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. That means every silent step of obedience is being recorded. You may think no one notices, but heaven is writing your story behind the curtain. Public reward is never random. It's God saying, I saw how you trusted me when no one else believed. I saw how you stayed faithful when it wasn't fair. I saw your hidden generosity, your unseen prayers, your quiet endurance. And now I will honor you before men. That's how he works. The louder your obedience in secret, the greater your influence in public. Not because you chased it, but because you were faithful when no one clapped. The world measures greatness by recognition. God measures it by faithfulness. He's not impressed by noise. He's moved by obedience. Some of the greatest victories happen behind closed doors. When you choose holiness in private, heaven begins to trust you with influence in public. When your heart stays right in the dark, your light shines brighter when the time comes. So if you're in a hidden season, don't despise it. Don't rush to be seen. Let God do his work in you before he works through you. Every private prayer, every unseen act of obedience, every quiet yes is preparing your crown. When the time is right, the same God who watched you in secret will showcase you in his time. But by then, your heart will be so anchored in obedience that recognition won't ruin you. Remember, you don't have to prove your faith. You just have to live it. Let God handle the reward. Your job is to obey quietly, love deeply, give freely, and trust fully. Because in the kingdom, what's done in private determines what's released in public. The applause of heaven always outweighs the approval of man. And when God finally rewards you openly, the world will see not your talent, but your testimony. That secret obedience built this public favor. True wealth is not measured by what you wear, drive, or display. It's measured by what you leave behind. Money can buy possessions, but it cannot buy purpose. It can fill your hands, but not your heart. Real prosperity is not about how much you have, but how much you build that outlives you. Because luxury fades, but legacy remains. Every blessing, every resource, every opportunity God gives you is meant to extend beyond your lifetime. When you understand that your perspective on money changes, you stop chasing it for pleasure and start managing it for purpose. The world defines wealth by accumulation, how much you can gather, how much you can show, how high you can rise. But heaven defines wealth by contribution, what you can give, what you can build, and how many lives you can transform. You are not remembered for what you owned. You are remembered for what you gave away. Every act of generosity, every investment in others, every seed of kindness sown into the soil of destiny becomes a voice that speaks after you are gone. That's the true measurement of wealth. When God increases you, He's not rewarding you. He's trusting you. He's giving you tools to create impact. Money is not evil. It's neutral. It becomes dangerous only when it has no mission. If you treat it as a master, it will consume you. But if you treat it as a servant, it will multiply your purpose. That's why the wise use wealth to build people, not pride. They understand that God doesn't release increase just to make them comfortable, but to make them contributors in His kingdom. Luxury impresses people, but legacy impacts generations. The clothes, cars, and houses will fade, but the seeds you plant in others will echo through eternity. When you feed the hungry, teach the lost, support the broken, or create opportunities for others, you are converting temporary resources into eternal value. Every act of purpose-driven giving becomes a monument in the spirit. Heaven records generosity differently than earth does. Down here, people count what they have up there. God counts what they give. It's easy to spend a lifetime trying to prove something with your wealth, to show that you've made it, that you matter, that you belong. But chasing validation through possessions only leads to emptiness. There will always be someone with more, someone with newer, someone with greater. True peace never comes from comparison. It comes from calling. You were never meant to compete. You were meant to contribute. And when you use your wealth for others, it begins to carry eternal weight. Think of every blessing as a building block. What are you constructing with your increase? Is it a monument to yourself or a mission for God? Are you leaving behind a trail of generosity or a pile of things? The rich fool in Scripture built bigger barns, but left no legacy. He expanded his storage, but not his soul. He lived to keep, not to contribute. And when his life ended, his wealth could not speak for him. That's the tragedy of misplaced treasure. When you invest only in what perishes, you forfeit what is permanent. Legacy begins with intention. You don't build it by accident, you build it by alignment. When you wake up each day asking, how can I use what I have to make a difference? You step into divine partnership. You begin to mirror the nature of God, who gave His best for the sake of others. Every time you give, you reflect His heart. Every time you sow, you echo His character. And when your life becomes a channel of blessing, heaven keeps refilling it, because God will never let generosity run dry. The most dangerous lie money tells is that it belongs to you. The truth is, you are only a steward. Every dollar, every opportunity, every open door is on loan. You don't own it. You manage it. And one day you'll give an account for how you used it. Did you store it, or did you serve with it? Did you hoard it, or did you help with it? Because wealth without impact is wasted. But when you use it with wisdom, it turns into worship. Your legacy isn't what you leave to people, it's what you leave in people. It's not just the inheritance of money, but the impartation of meaning. Teach your children faith, generosity, and purpose. Those are riches that cannot be stolen. Build something that continues to bless when your name is no longer spoken. Maybe it's a foundation, a ministry, a message, or simply a life lived with love. Those are the things heaven calls wealth. In the end, when you stand before God, He won't ask how much you earned. He'll ask how much you invested in eternity. What did you do with the favor, the influence, the provision? Did it die with you, or did it give life to others? That's the question every wise heart must answer. Because when the last breath leaves your body, luxury stays behind, but legacy follows you home. So don't live to impress, live to impact. Don't just collect, create. Use your money your voice, your time, and your talents to build what will outlive you. That's how heaven measures success. True wealth is not in your possessions. It's in your purpose. And when you live for legacy, your name may fade, but your impact never will.